Hi there, welcome to another episode of History. This is list time and today's top 10 is greatest rivalries in Formula 1 history. Let's get to this. I'm sure you will have some more that I've missed out on. Please type them in the comments, hit us up, share the video, please hit that sub button if you know you want to. But let's get going. 10th place, Vettel versus Webber. The Red Bull teammates had a strained relationship even before they became teammates. Sebastian Vettel drove into the back of Mark Webber's car in the rain in Japan in 2007, and the experienced Webber had a bit of a problem with the kid who drove into his back. In 2010, things came to a heated point when they came together while fighting for the lead at the Turkish Grand Prix. Red Bull management sided with Golden Boy Vettel, while the rest of the world seemed to feel that he was in the wrong. Hey, how times have changed with the Vettel and Leclerc things, eh? Golden Boy and grizzled veteran. According to David Tremaine of The Independent, Webber's anger led him to declare that his win at Silverstone wasn't bad for a number 2 driver, with tongue in cheek, after of course the team took his front wing off when Vettel broke his, as there were no spare wings, and the Australian had to incur the wrath of Mr. Vettel in Brazil as he appeared not to support Vettel's title bid. In 2011, more friction happened when Vettel was running away with the championship and Webber failing to challenge in 2011 and 2012 as well, seemingly believing, as it possibly looked as well, that the team was favouring the German. But of course, famously Vettel managed to ignore, without any consequences, team orders and pass Webber for the win in Malaysia. Things became too much for the Aussie, who decided that he'd had enough and he retired from the sport. Vettel and Webber were teammates at Red Bull for 5 years, and the German won 4 world titles in them, and famously got under his Aussie teammate's skin. Number 9, Ayrton Senna versus Nelson Piquet. Both of them Brazilian, but so far apart in character they might have been born on different planets. Nelson Piquet was already a celebrated 2-time world champion when Ayrton Senna made his F1 debut, and he would go on to win another in '87, with Senna finishing 3rd that season. According to the BBC, a possibly jealous Piquet called Senna the Sao Paulo taxi driver in 1988, which of course was also the year Senna won his first world championship. Not bad for a cab driver. Now, Piquet was seemingly jealous as he was no longer the Brazilian wonder, and he also never recovered 100% from a horror accident that he had. I think it was at Imola, and it never again seriously challenged for a title. With Senna going from strength to strength until of course his fatal accident in 1994. Also check out our Best of the Brazilians episode on the Goat-Off series here on History. See the link in the description for more on this rivalry. Number 8, bit of a surprise here possibly. Fangio versus Moss. Juan Manuel Fangio and Sterling Moss. We're going back now. One was the next big thing, the other was the greatest in the world. Fangio would go on to win 5 drivers' titles and Moss never won a single one, even though he came so close. He was the main reason I joined Mercedes-Benz in 1955, that and the fact that it was a quick and reliable car. I wasn't used to that, and after driving for HWM, Mercedes had 56 people in the racing department. That was a lot for the times. And of course there was also the team manager Alfred Neubauer and Rudi Uhlenhaut, the engineer. But Fangio was my strongest reason for going there, said Moss. In the Grand Prix for Mercedes, we were known as the train because I followed him so closely, only 3 or 4 feet behind. This was of course a rivalry, yes, but also Fangio was Moss's great hero, and he would finish behind him time and again. Moss won his first race by beating Fangio by less than half a second in Britain, in a season where Fangio won every other Grand Prix except for Monaco, where he had to retire. Fangio was the Hamilton of his day, and Moss the only one likely to stop him. Unfortunately, it didn't happen then, like it hasn't happened in modern times. Number 7, Schumacher versus Häkkinen. Wow, these two had 3 great title fights in 3 years. Schumacher himself said that Mika Häkkinen was the rival that he respected the most. Their rivalry had begun earlier in F3 in Macau, where they had some great racing, and it carried on through Formula One. In 1998, Schumacher's Ferrari wasn't quite good enough to beat Häkkinen's McLaren, of course powered by the German Mercedes engines. In 1999, Schumacher was looking quick, and then he broke his leg at Silverstone, effectively handing the title fight over to Häkkinen and Irvine. Then 2000 came around, and Schumacher finally delivered for Ferrari, starting the dominant spell that everybody feared would happen. And after that, of course, Häkkinen retired. A great rivalry by two terrific racers, cool, calm and collected, and very, very quick. Number 6, Lauda versus Hunt. Now, if you haven't watched the movie Rush, amazing, probably the best racing form I've ever seen. According to Niki Lauda, Hunt was one of the fastest drivers he ever came up against. Shortly after the release of the film Rush, which of course is about the 1976 season, the season where Niki Lauda suffered his horrendous burns, and where Hunt and Lauda had one of the greatest battles for the championship in history. Lauda said in an interview that they spent time together off the track, and he even visited Hunt in his London flat, so they seem to be friends. Lauda said, "There are good drivers and bad ones, and then there are the really talented ones who are difficult to beat, and James was one of them. We respected each other very much in the old days. To drive 300 kilometers an hour side by side towards a corner, if someone makes a mistake, one or both are killed. Hunt was someone you could rely on to be really precise. The sad thing is that he isn't here now. I wish he could have seen the movie, because I know he would have enjoyed it." In 76, James Hunt beat Lauda, who was the defending champion. They finished first and second. The next season, Lauda took back his championship, and Hunt finished 5th. Schumacher again, this time against Damon Hill in 5th. In this one, Schumacher was, according to the English-speaking world, the villain, and Damon Hill, the poor boy that was being screwed over. Schumacher ended Hill's 94 title chances by turning his car in on the passing Williams and taking him out to win the title. Now this cost Schumacher a lot of respect, and of course he later on tried to do the same with Jacques Villeneuve in 97. Damon Hill in 94 had the quicker car, Schumacher powered by Ford, Hill by the all-conquering Renault engine, but Schumacher got under his skin and he beat him. In 95, Renault also moved over to Benetton, and they had equal engines, but it was still common knowledge that the Williams was a bit faster. But Schumacher had Hill, and he once again beat him. And then Schumi played the mind games better. He got under Hill's skin, and he beat him into submission. 4th place, Alonso versus Hamilton. The double champ and the up-and-coming youngster would join forces at McLaren. McLaren never learned from their mistakes, seemingly, as we will see later. They only spent one season as teammates at McLaren, but Alonso and Hamilton had a fiery battle, which turned very, very toxic. McLaren entered the season with an all-new driver pairing, one a reigning double champion, the other the highest rated rookie. Hamilton, halfway through the season, became the favourite to win the title, but both won bugger all that season, as Kimi Räikkönen stole it at the last race, and they finished level on points. Now obviously Alonso hated being beaten by the rookie. Tensions inside McLaren reached a boiling point in qualifying in Hungary, where Hamilton refused to follow the team instructions and give Alonso track position during stage 3 of qualifying. Now that of course could not be let go, and in retaliation Alonso remained in his pit box despite the lifting of the lollipop, blocking Hamilton so that he could not complete the final lap. Well, tit for tat. Alonso duly took pole, but he was docked 5 points by the FIA. At Spa, at the exit of La Source hairpin, Alonso veered across the track towards Hamilton's car, forcing the youngster off the circuit. Hamilton, though, found traction in the runoff area to nip ahead of Alonso in the approach to Eau Rouge, but the Spaniard muscled him out of the way. By this time, though, things had become very, very sour, and Ron Dennis said about Alonso, we're not on speaking terms. The relationship between Fernando and I is extremely cold. That is an understatement. He does not speak to anyone much. He's a remarkable recluse for a driver. Sure. And as I said, Hamilton and Alonso finished level on points, handing the title to Kimi Räikkönen. Third place, Lewis Hamilton again against Nico Rosberg. It seems like the leading World Championship winners, Hamilton and Schumacher, make this list a lot. Hamilton and Rosberg were racing each other since they were kids, dicing in go-karts already, and they finally ended up as teammates in F1 for Mercedes. During their time together, Hamilton and Rosberg won 54 out of 78 races. Toto Wolff said, "You realize that both of them are complete alpha drivers. Both of them want to attempt to win the championship. Neither of them are slotted in as a number 2. It's a little bit like a volcano that has started to shake and then eventually erupts. Every controversy grew into something bigger and then became quite a distraction for the team to manage. Because we are humans, it always gets complicated emotionally, because at times you like one and then you like the other. That's completely normal." Now this one was very controversial. Many things happened between the two, taking each other out, blocking each other, having horrible things to say in the press. You just sense the toxicity. In Spain 2016, their final season together, Rosberg was struggling with brakes. He looked on course to record a win, but in the final laps, Lewis closed in, and a mistake from Rosberg gave Lewis the better line. Hamilton took the outside, moved alongside Rosberg, approaching the corner. As Hamilton turned in to make the corner, Rosberg went straight on, taking out Hamilton. Furious, Toto Wolff threatened with team orders, but Rosberg won the 2016 title and then duly retired from racing. Number 2. This one might be a bit of a surprise. Gilles Villeneuve versus Didier Peroni. When Peroni joined Ferrari, Villeneuve had already been there for 4 years. He had won the title alongside Jody Scheckter. The Constructors' title, Scheckter won the world title. He welcomed the younger Peroni amicably. Their first year went by without much incident. But then, one of the races, Alain Prost retired. Renault Arnoux was in the other Renault, of course Prost was in one Renault, and he was battling Peroni and Villeneuve's Ferraris. Now, the Renault was faster on the straights, but his turbo exploded, leaving the two Ferraris fighting for the lead. They bumped wheels a few times, exchanging positions the whole time, fighting each other. But with the Ferrari 1-2 seeming in the bag, the garage sent out the slow down message. Now, Villeneuve saw this as team orders to maintain position. Peroni did not. 2 laps left. Villeneuve was in the lead, believing he was in formation. Peroni slipped by on the inside and held on to win. Murray Walker proclaimed, "There's going to be quite a tense interview between the Ferrari management and Mr. Peroni at the end of this race." Villeneuve exploded. He vowed never to speak to Peroni again, and things went from bad to worse. The next Grand Prix was 2 weeks later at Zolder. The likeable Canadian collided with the back of Jochen Mass's March in qualifying, becoming airborne and throwing Villeneuve out of the car into a wire fence. He was pronounced dead later that day. It was thought that he was trying to better Peroni's lap time, to show him who the better driver was. It was heartbreaking. A very short 2-week rivalry with the most horrendous of finishes. Now, before we get to the number 1, let's have a look at an honorable mention. Jim Clark versus Graham Hill, the gentleman's rivalry. No animosity or even dislike here, only mutual respect and hard racing. The pair were friendly off the track and fiercely competitive off it. They shared several titles between them in the 1960s, including 2 years as Lotus teammates, in which they were both champions, Clark in 1967 and Hill taking it in 68. There was no visible animosity, but when they strapped on their helmets and revved up those beautiful sounding 1960s engines, all they wanted was to win. There were 6 British championship winning years in the 60s, and Hill won 2 and Clark won 2. Impressive. Hill would dedicate his 68 title to Clark, who was killed in a Formula 2 accident at Hockenheim. Well, number 1 top F1 rivalry, Senna and Prost. Of course you knew it, but you know why. You know what happens when the top driver in Formula 1 is teamed up with someone who wants to win at almost any cost? Fireworks, my friend, fireworks, that's what happens. Prost was the top guy at McLaren, and in came up-and-coming Senna. Sounds familiar, eh? Hamilton Alonso. The fiery duo was amazingly successful. In 2 seasons in the same team, they won 25 from 32 races. It's amazing. But there were some flashpoints. In '88, in the French Grand Prix, Prost led the race from start up to lap 36. When Senna stole the lead after a quicker pit, Senna lost one of his gears and Prost slipped past with 20 laps to go to win the race. In Hungary in '88, the Brazilian beat the Frenchman by half a second after 76 laps of racing. Also in '88 in Japan, there was a problem with Senna's start at Suzuka, and it seemed like he had lost his chance to win the '88 title. He had pole position, but his McLaren had stalled and he was forced to push start his car. The rules were different then. Falling down to 14th. But of course he was Ayrton Senna and he made an amazing recovery, winning the race. On lap 28 he passed Prost with an amazing passing move on the straight, making the fans go crazy and snatching his first F1 title from teammate and defending champion Alain Prost. A year later in Japan, again it was the two of them. Senna seemed faster than Prost in qualifying, but he ended up being overtaken by the Frenchman in the race that was going to decide the title. Senna needed a win to still have a chance of becoming champion in Australia, so he tried overtaking Prost on lap 47, but the Frenchman crashed into him and immediately exited his car. Even with a broken front wing though, Senna wasn't beaten, and he went back on the track determined to fight for the win. The Brazilian, of course, was disqualified. This meant that Prost was declared champion, thanks to behind-the-scenes maneuvering by countryman Jean-Marie Balestre. But of course Prost would argue that there was behind-the-scenes maneuvering from Senna, of course, inside the McLaren team. Prost left for Ferrari with his title, and a year later at Japan, once again, it was Senna's payback time. This time, the crash between Senna and Prost gave the title to Senna, who became a two-time champion. Later at Williams, Prost would refuse to have Senna, or Mansell as a matter of fact, as a teammate, leading Senna to call him a coward at a press conference. The two would duel it out again in '93, with Prost winning comfortably. They seemed to make peace after Prost's retirement from the sport before Senna's tragic death at Imola in 1994. So that's it. The 10 top rivalries in Formula 1 history. I hope you enjoyed our list. I hope you enjoy the channel. Check out some other videos. Hit that sub button, please, and share some of our stuff. God bless and enjoy Formula 1.